Welcome back to Horrifying Stories. These creepy stories we are about to feature are stories shared on Reddit experienced by real people in real life. Their horrifying stories will leave you paranoid and feeling the cold creeps, so viewer discretion is advised. Man under the bed. A 22-year-old woman just got her own apartment and she was slowly starting to settle down in her unit onto a new milestone of living independently. One pretty ordinary night, she went out of her unit and went to the entrance area where the mailbox was located to get her mail. At that time, she was busy talking to her boyfriend on the phone, and after getting her mails, she went immediately back inside. Now, the door of her unit in the apartment complex has a safety feature wherein it locks automatically when the door is closed, so she has always felt confident in terms of safety and security as long as she was inside the building's premises. When she got back to her unit, she sat on her bed and, being the multitasker that she was, opened her mail while at the same time using her phone as she continued to talk to her boyfriend. A few seconds later, she accidentally dropped her phone and it ended up under her bed. So, she went flat on the floor, extended her hand, and reached under in order to retrieve it. While in the process of getting the phone, a figure came to her peripheral vision. Someone was under her bed. The person was lying still, curled up, and his back was facing her, so she could not see the person's face. Fortunately, because of how he was positioned, he did not have even the slightest idea that his target already saw him. She choked in fear, and even though she badly wanted to scream, she was able to control herself. Immediately, so many thoughts began running in her mind, but after quickly calming herself down, she was able to gather herself and managed to create an escape plan. She picked her phone up and said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I am just gonna take a shower and call you back." With no time to waste, and in the most casual and natural manner, she went straight to her bathroom and as soon as she got inside, made sure she immediately locked the door. She turned the shower on so the sound of rushing water could drown out the noise of what she was about to do. Now, her bathroom has a small window which she was able to fit in, and her apartment unit was strategically located on the first floor. She squeezed herself through the window and after much struggle, she was able to finally get out. She immediately called the police and relayed every single detail of what had happened. The police instructed her to cross the street and find a secure spot to temporarily hide right across her apartment complex. The police also advised her to check if anyone came out of the apartment complex. She went across the street as instructed. As she reached the other side of the road, she saw a parked car and decided to hide behind it. She made sure no one could see her. From where she was hiding, she could clearly see her bathroom window and the entrance door. She followed all that the police told her to do, including being on the lookout should a man also come out through the bathroom window or if she notices someone with suspicious movement exiting the building. She then called her boyfriend back and told him all that had happened. Worried for his girlfriend, he asked where she was hiding and hurriedly went straight to where she was. When the police arrived at the scene, they first met her where she was hiding. She gave the police the keys to her apartment unit and they went straight inside the building complex into her apartment. As they opened the door, they couldn't believe what they saw. A few moments later, the woman and her boyfriend saw the cops come out of the building. In their custody was a very thin man with a crazy look in his eyes. He did not even resist the arrest. When she approached the police and asked what had happened inside, they began to relay how the man was caught. As soon as they got inside her unit, they found a man standing outside her bathroom door, holding a kitchen knife which he got from her kitchen. He was on standby, ready to attack, just waiting for her to come out of the bathroom. The woman's quick thinking saved her from extreme danger. How could this man have gotten inside in such a secure building? Apparently, the man was somehow able to swiftly sneak in through the entry door of the apartment just in time before the door auto-locks itself and hid under the bed, all while she was busy on the phone and getting her mail. Turns out, the man was a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital after the incident. Man on the road. It was around 2 in the morning in a small city. The night was freezing and the roads were empty. Exhausted from a long shift, a nurse living in a remote area was driving home from work. She lives close by, about a couple miles from her work. While driving in the residential area, just around the corner of her house, she saw a man in the street, lying face down. She was a nurse, and in her practice, she knew it was very common for people to have a fall. True to her oath and her heart of service as a nurse, the first thing that came to her mind was to help the guy up and check if he was hurt. She slowed down while driving close to the man, and during that moment, a thought suddenly came to her mind. She was a small woman. She did not carry any weapons to protect her, and if something went wrong, she had no chance of defending herself. However, at the same time, she also struggled with the thought that she needed to do something to at least help the man. She then decided to call 911 as she slowly passed by the man. Upon nearing the end of the street, she slowly stepped on the brakes and slowed down, bringing the car to a full stop at the traffic light. She informed the dispatcher that there was a man lying face down on the street and might need help. While she was talking on the phone with the dispatcher, she heard a loud bang. A man was pounding the window on the driver's side and at the same time was repeatedly trying to open the car. She looked at her rear view mirror and the man who was lying on the street was not there anymore. In her fear, she screamed and she accelerated through a red light. The dispatcher was still on the phone and she narrated to him what had happened. She told the dispatcher that she was already very close to her house, but the dispatcher instructed her to keep driving. She continued to drive around until she managed to calm her nerves down. She then went back to the street close to her house and scanned the area. She did not see the man anymore, so she got off the phone and she was assured by the dispatcher that he will make sure to send police officers to monitor the area. When she got to her place, she made a final scan around the area to make sure it was safe before getting out of the car. She saw the man walking with 2 other men. She crouched down in her car to make sure they did not see her. When she looked again, they were already far down the road, so without delay, she ran as fast as she could into her house. Growling man. There was this woman who lived in a medium-sized apartment. Although the city where she was had a very high crime rate and human trafficking was rampant, this woman still found her area safe, and she was basically comfortable going around, especially if it's just around her apartment. She was familiar with a lot of people around the area, even with some of the homeless people staying there. She finds their neighborhood generally well lit too, so she has not really been concerned about her safety there. Until one night, she was brought to her senses. There is no safe place in this earthly home after all. On that fateful night, a few minutes past midnight, this woman invited her partner to come and smoke cigars with her outside the building. He turned down her invitation, so she figured she can just go on alone. She went out of her unit, locked the door, walked down the stairs all by herself, and went out of the apartment building into the main street. Now, the main street wasn't empty yet, and she felt safe with the sight of a few cars that still continued to pass by even during the wee hours. However, after a few steps from the building's exit, something caught her eye. A van slowly began to move forward as if trying to follow her pace. She wasn't quite sure as she did not attempt to look their way, but in her line of sight, it was either a black or dark blue colored van. She felt weird, but since it was on the other side of the road, she thought she was just overthinking. The van also came to a stop at the traffic light when she began to turn at the corner. There was a mini picnic area just beyond the corner that had a few food trucks. It was aesthetically lit with those trendy string lights, but even if it was always left on until morning, it wasn't enough to really light up the area. She passed by the area where the picnic tables were and caught sight of a big guy wearing dark-colored clothing. He was alone, sitting at the cornermost table, with probably a hoodie or a hat on. She couldn't see his face properly, but she knew his eyes were on her as she continued walking to her usual smoking area. It was just on the other side of the wall surrounding the picnic area. But since the guy was there, she decided to go further to an area beside a parked construction vehicle. She then got her phone, put her headphones on, and turned on the music while she started to smoke. As she was scrolling her phone and reading, she felt an eerie feeling and goosebumps all over her body. She has never experienced something like this before. She decided to turn her music off, and as soon as she clicked the pause button, she heard the crackling sound of gravel from behind her. When she turned around, a man with round and very dark bulging eyes tried to grab her. He was growling with his mouth wide open. She got startled, fell down, and began running as fast as she could. She sped off but slowed down after a while to quickly take a good look of the man behind her. And it was then that she realized that this was the same guy she saw sitting at the picnic table. It became clearer to her now. He wasn't wearing a hoodie but a bucket hat. And he had light-colored hair that fell up to his shoulder, and he was around 6 foot tall. The guy was starting to close in, so she focused back on escaping him. She was nearing the main entrance of the apartment building, but as she thought it through, she realized she had two problems. One was that the main entrance had double doors that closed very slowly, and two, there were only elevators in that entrance, so the chances of the guy catching up to her before she rides the elevator was high. She decided to keep running, hoping she was running fast enough to get to the other entrance of the building. She could hear the guy still growling while running behind her. Now, this second entrance has two doors that quickly open and close, which directly leads to the stairs near her apartment unit on the second floor. As she came close to the second entrance, suddenly, another man came up across her and seemed to be walking fast straight toward her. This second man in front of her was also growling. She reached for the keypad to unlock it and immediately shut the door as soon as she got inside. She then saw the second man right in front of her on the other side of the door's glass window. This man had longer hair than the first and was wearing a jumpsuit. His wild eyes looked straight at her and his grinding teeth creeped her all the more. She quickly turned her back and ran up the stairs. She kept running, feeling like they were still behind her, until she was right inside her apartment unit with doors securely locked. She started to process everything that had happened and thought maybe they did not have any idea of the other entrance, so they weren't prepared that she would skip the main entrance and keep running. She grabbed her inhaler as she tried to calm herself down, then secretly spied from her window. She saw the exact same van that seemed to follow her earlier on the street, parked right across the entrance to her building. Then she saw three men, two of which she identified to be the ones chasing her, walking around the side of her building. After a few minutes, they were trying to point flashlights into the window of the building as though they were hoping they could find her. She decided to call the building manager and reported what had happened, fearing another innocent person might just experience the same trauma she just had. The building manager sent an advisory to all the residents to stay vigilant. Still not satisfied, she also called the authorities, and they told her to keep away from the window as they were on their way. After a while, she heard a police car siren from afar and saw the man quickly jumping into the van, speeding off away from the building. Later on, another police car arrived at the building to check and scan the area. That night, she was so paranoid and traumatized she couldn't sleep. The next morning, she even asked one of the homeless people outside, which she had befriended, if he noticed anything suspicious the previous night, but he didn't. What she found most disturbing was their growling sound and their scary eyes. The woman did not receive any updates from the police and thought they might have just brushed it off since they did not notice anything suspicious when they arrived. These horrifying stories may be very different and yet still so similar. All three involved people were so close to being abducted, harmed, or worse, murdered, if not for their quick thinking and presence of mind. Thankfully, they made it alive. Thank you for making it this far. We appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, do click that subscribe button and like this video. If you want to hear more of these short but horrifying stories, please let us know in the comments below. Once again, thank you and we'll see you in the next one.